doing premarital counseling, I was given this advice, and I think it was some of the best advice I could have ever gotten. It was this: never ever complain to your close family members about your spouse. Never ever do it. Reason being is, let's say you have an argument with your spouse. You go call your mom, you go call your sister, your dad, whatever. You pour your heart out, you're in tears, you're crying, he's horrible, he's that, yada, yada. Then the next day, you talk it over with your spouse, you work it out, you've moved on. You worked it out with your spouse, you moved on, you guys are maybe planning your life, you're trying to move forward. Your mom, your dad, your sister, whoever you called, they didn't move on. They weren't in that conversation when you were working those things out with your spouse. And so now they have that in the back of your head. And here's the thing, like 90% of the time, your family, they're going to side with you by default because they love you. And that doesn't mean that they won't love your spouse or whoever you're with. But naturally, they're generally going to side with you because, you're their family, you're their kin. And so when you do things like that, over time, that can really start to create a wedge. And then if you, like I said, if you're telling all your close family your marital business, right? And then you work things out with your husband or your wife or whatever it may be, but they're still remembering all those issues, they're still remembering all those challenges, then it can create a lot of toxicity. It can create a lot of challenges. And so that's one of the first things that they told me and my husband when we were in premarital. They're just like, whatever you do, make sure that there are just certain things that you don't, if you're going through something, you don't tell people, you don't put that out on blast. You don't, expose your spouse in that way, because that create a lot of chaos. And, while I certainly do not pretend by any way, shape, or form to be an expert in marriage, or an expert in relationship, period, I'm very much learning and growing every single day. I do believe that that's just timeless and valuable advice wherever you're at. Even if you're dating, even if you're a prospect where you're dating or you're courting somebody and you're really thinking about them seriously, you have to have really, really strong boundaries. Now, that's not to say that you're to push people away. I think it is important to have good relationships with your family and have people dedicated. If maybe you and your spouse are like, okay, we want to have a couple or a person that we both trust, that if we feel like we need somebody else to help us navigate this tough issue, which that happens sometimes, we have decided that we're going to go to them. So maybe you have decided on that person, you have chosen that person, but outside of that, it's like you have got to have clear boundaries. You have to decide who's going to speak into us, who's going to be that person or those people that we lean on, and then who are going to be the people that we're just not going to talk about these certain things, or what are those subject matters that we're just not going to discuss, period. Or if we do discuss them, we're not going to discuss them until we have hashed them out personally. I think boundaries are incredibly important. And like I said, that's one of the things that, I was taught in marriage counseling, and I'm very, very, very much still working things out. But I think that's just good, basic relationship one-on-one advice to have in any stage of the relationship. If you are, like I said, if you're courting, you're engaged, or if you're married, you definitely got to have strong boundaries, because like I said, when you invite the wrong people into a situation prematurely, it can create a lot of chaos. You can have all these different voices that don't need to be there, and that can lead to all kinds of confusion. And the last thing you want in a relationship with a person, especially someone as intimate as your spouse, the last thing you want is confusion and a whole bunch of different extra voices. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comments section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Talk later. Bye.